Okay, good luck to all. We're up to Ayin Gimel Amid Beis. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom. 8 lines from the bottom. And we're discussing a case. Again, it's a Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. We'll go with Rashi's Pshat. We're discussing a case where a person gave a get, that the get should be Mekayim a minute before he dies. A minute before he dies. A shah before he died. So Rabbi Yehuda had stated, why does she in those days? Why is she in those days? She's an Eishes l'chol devareha. No, she's totally married. She'll only be considered divorced, right, a second before he dies. So all the time until he dies, she's an Eishes. And Rabbi Yosef says she's megureshes ve'ena megureshes. He was in doubt of every single moment, and therefore she is in a state of nishtahi and nishtaher. Okay, so we're up to Pini, we're up to Ayin Gimel on the base, 8 lines from the bottom. Tana. Mahi Boise Yomim, Rabbi Huda Keisha Sish L'chol Devrei, Rabbi Yossi Yom Megureshes and Megureshes. Tana, Ubulvad Shiyamos. Right. Provided that what? That she dies. Provided that he dies. In other words, if he doesn't die, everyone would admit that she's an Eishes Shish, there's no get. But this machlokes is provided that what? When she dies. Says the Gemara, Uchimayis Habekita, V'kaimelon then get lachamisa. Mashma, that when you're telling me that that's to die, and then it becomes a get, we know ain't get lachamisa. Again, the havamina of the Gemara, guys, is that it's speaking in a case where you gave a get on a condition, and you said that it should be a get before you die. So the Gemara's havamina, I think it's speaking about it's you get today, hayoim ulachamisa. So the Gemara's teretz is it's not speaking about when you said it's you get today and after misa, which is a suffix. What are you saying? You get is from now, and having charata only lachamisa, or no? Is it what is a get from now? Period. And it's a tanai, right? If that's the case, and he dies, then ain't get lachamisa. So the Gemara answers, as I just told you, Amar Rabba ba'omer me'es shani ba'olam. This is a get. This is a get me'es shani ba'olam. As long as what it should be not a get until a minute I'm in the world. The get should be chal let's say a second before I die. So Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that when you die, it shows huvra. It's using the concept of breira, fellas. What's breira? That it's retroactive. Let's say he gives the get in September 1st and says the following. Says that this is a get a minute before I die. He dies in January. So if you hold a breira, so it's huvra hadava lemafreya, it shows retroactively from September till January, she was an Eishes Ish. The get was only in January. So from September to January, she was an Eishes Ish. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. She's an Eishes Ish l'chol devareha. And Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that ain't breira. You don't say breira in the situation. So if you don't say breira in the situation, you have to worry from September 1st, September 2nd, September 3rd, every single second that may be what? The day that he dies, and therefore it's a get. They ain't a get. That's the machlokes, the hesper of machlokes between the two. Yomim shebein tayim, during these days, right? Baila zakai b'mitziasa, during these days of the get that sha'achas before I die, right? What is she? The Baal is mizak in her mitzvah. If she finds something, the Baal will get it. If she makes money, the Baal will get it. First, the ability of Aleph to go ahead and be made for Hanidarim. And if he is a kohen, he can be metamaha because the kohen is allowed to be metamaha to his wife. Kol shel dava. What's the rule of thumb? Harihi ki ishtay l'chol dava. Ella shenet tzrichim and get sheni. Dibur Rabbi Yehuda. She's an eishes ish l'chol davar. That's what Rabbi Yehuda said. Yesh breira, guys, right? If you can say breira that from September 1st to January 1st she was an eishes ish. We'll only say that she's a divorcee on January 1st. And so what if she's an eishes l'chol davar? What does it mean? That on January 1st, when he dies, then she's a divorcee, and therefore she doesn't fall to yibum. Again, the reason why you want to divorce your wife in this situation is you want her to be a gerusha rather than an almana. You want her to be a widow rather than, because again, you don't want to go ahead. Let's say for whatever reason you don't want to fall into yibum. For example, you want to be nice. Let's say you have a younger brother. you're a married man, you have a younger brother who's a year old, 2 years old, and you would die. What would happen? She'd have to wait for this boy to grow up to do chalitza or yibum. So to avoid that, if I divorce you, I don't have to. It could be a very, very altruistic movement, reason to divorce her. So therefore, the nafkamin over here is, even though from the time of September till January she's an eishes ish l'chol davar, once January comes, she's a divorcee. So it has tremendous ramifications. She's a divorcee. You don't need another get. She's gone. Reb Meir is of the opinion, bi'ilasei teluya. During that period of time, right? During the period of time, if someone is with her, it's teluya until until he dies. If he doesn't die, she's with an eishes ish. If she does die, he's with a gerusha. So l'chayra, what does Rashi say? Bi'ilasei teluya hadavar tali. The matter depends upon at shiyamais ayat shiyamay mechali zeh till he gets better. Imeis menachali habo alaha pater. If he dies as a result of that chayli, is pater. The Reb Meir mashmalei me'eis shani ba'olam me'ata shani ba'olam hainu me'ata nesina from the time I give it. I'm changing the gersa. V'achi kamala harizeh gitech me'ata shani ba'olam imesi. It's a get from now. If I die from this disease, hilkach kishemes, when he does die from that disease, igloi milsa milsa the gerusha hava b'shas bia v'mloi meis haba b'chata. So in other words, you're clearly either one or the other. You're not a doubt. You're either a married woman, and therefore and b'shogeg you'd be a chatas. The meis you'd be b'chenek. And if you're not a married woman, then you pater. So it's teluya. The bia is teluya depending upon death or not. Depending upon death or not. So Reb Yehuda comes to the psak yesh breira, and therefore you're an eishes ish. And if you were with her, you'd go ahead and you'd be chayiv chenek. And if you do a b'shoigeg, you'd be chayiv chatas. Reb Meir says no, it's teluya, and therefore only if he dies from that disease it would be a chatas. Reb Yosi says no. Reb Yosi says bi'ilasei suffik. The bia is a suffik. I don't know exactly what the state is. How do you view a get that's been given on the condition that it should be an hour before I die, a minute before I die? Let's see Rashi here. Rabbi Yossi bi'ilasei suffik l'chashiyamais the mashmalei me'es shani ba'olam umiu misafkalei al shos bia igerusha have oilai shem zuhi shasa ruilis this machlamisa. Maybe when you're with her, this is the hour before misa, and she's a gerusha. Shema einazu. Maybe it's not the hour before his death. The gerusha. Hilkach im yamais. If he dies, maybe haba aleha ashim taloi. The one we're bringing ashim taloi. V'mlo yamas b'chatas vaday. Okay. Now, one of the outside fellas, if a person is over an avera that b'shogeg you'd have to bring a chatas. If you're in doubt whether you did that avera or not, then you would go ahead and bring what's called an ashim taloi. So, for example, it's a machlokus in the Gemara increases whether you need two chatichos or one. So, for example, let's most pashira example. There's a piece of meat in front of you. You don't know if this is shuman, if it's kosher fatty meat, or you don't know if it's chaylev, or it's non-kosher fatty meat. Chaylev is a chi of karis, therefore b'shogeg is a chi of chatas. You eat that piece. So right now you're in doubt whether it was or wasn't. Good? You would then bring an ashim taloi. And if you find out later that it was chaylev, then you bring the chatas. So over here, this person is with this woman. At this point in time, I don't know the status of this woman, whether he'll die, right? And then what? She's a gerusha, or she's an eishes ish. If she's an eishes ish, so to go ahead and avoid that, I bring an ashim tali. So right now we have three shitas. Like Rabbi Yehuda, you're going to bring a chatas vaday because you're with an eishes ish. Like Rabbi Meir, you're going to bring neither. It's tali. It depends. If you find right now you don't bring anything. If you find out, you're going to bring a chatas. Like Rabbi Yossi, you're going to bring an ashim tali. So three different opinions: chatas, nothing, ashim tali.
Each time he's with her, he has to bring a different carbon. In other words, say between September and January, he's with her 10 times. So he has to bring 10 ashim tolis, 10 chatas.
Look, again, Behelam echad, that goes into the shaila, one halama, at each time, whether that's one halama or not. If it's a different halama, then yes. If not, not.
What happens if she dies? What happens if she dies?
What?
What happens if she dies after he lives with her?
If she dies,
Yeah.
again, it would make a difference, Maya. It depends whether you were with her, whether she was or she wasn't. That's contingent upon the husband.
Mhm.
If you're with an Ashish and she dies, you're dead. Right? In other words, right? Understand, her status has nothing to do with the chiyuv. The chiyuv comes about, her status is contingent upon the husband. So once you do an act to her, if you die, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, right.
This is why you
How
look.
was this a show gig?
What?
How was this a show gig?
You were unaware of her status when you were with her. You were in a bed and you thought you were with one woman, you were with another woman. It is, again, most of these cases are hypothetical, but again, we care about the practical difference in giving nafkaminas. That's really what okay, so now we have a fourth shita. She's migureshes, but not migureshes. And that seems to be like Reb Yosi, and you're bringing Hashem Taloi. And the Gemara is going to ask, then what's the difference between Reb Yosi and what and the Chacham? Okay, so outside guys, I got 4 fingers up, 4 shitas. Reb Yehuda, Chatas, because she's Vadei Neshes Ish. Reb Meir, nothing right now, because it's Tali, it depends. If die, yes, not. Reb Yosi, Hashem Taloi. Chachamim Hashem Taloi, but they use the lashon of Migureshes Veina Migureshes. Rabbi Yossi used the lashon of Suffolk. We'll see if there's an afkamina in halacha. Okay, obviously there is. Says the Gemara Vaita. My ikka bein Reb Meir Reb Yossi. What's the difference between Reb Meir, who says you bring a chatas if you find out, and Reb Yossi also agrees you bring a chatas if you find out? Reb Yochanan Hashem Taloi. The nafkamina would be whether you bring an Hashem Taloi or not. Light Reb Meir, you're not bringing an Hashem Taloi. Light Reb Meir, you're not bringing an Hashem Taloi. Light the Chachamim, you're bringing an Hashem Taloi. Light the Reb Yosi, you're bringing an Hashem Taloi. Excuse me. Ikiminayo. Reb Meir loy Maisi Hashem Taloi. Reb Meir says Taloi. You either bring a Chatos or nothing. Reb Yosi Maisi Hashem Taloi. You're going to bring an Hashem Taloi. The Chachamim Maimim Migureshes ve'enu Migureshes. The Chachamim say that Migureshes and enu Migureshes, which is the Gemara Hainu Reb Yosi, that you're going to bring an Hashem Taloi, guys, right? What does Migureshes and Migureshes mean? It's a state of a suffix. If it's a state of a suffix, you're going to bring an Hashem Taloi. If you're going to bring an Hashem Taloi, what's the chilik between Reb Yosi and the Chachamim? It can be neither the Reb Zeira. The difference would be Reb Zeira's case. Dom Reb Zeira, Amar Rabba Bar Yirmiyah, Amar Shmuel, Kol Makom She'omru Chachamim Migureshes ve'enu Migureshes, Baila Chayim B'Zonaseha. Does the husband have to support the wife during this period? Right? Does the husband have to support the wife during this period? You'd have to support. Rabbi Yossi agrees with Rabbi Zeira's din. Rabbi Yossi would agree also that you'd have to support. However, in this situation, it's not migureshes ve'enu migureshes, the suffix. Since it's a suffix, you don't have to go ahead and support. So those are the 4 shitas. I'll tell you just a nice ha'ara. There is a machlokes in the Gemara increases when you bring an Hashem Taloi. Do you need 1 chaticha or 2 chatichas? So in other words, do I need to have the Issa there or not? So do I need the following? I have a piece of kosher fat, I have chaylev, and I'm supping what I eat, or even 1, right? Or even just 1, if that is a suffix. There's a Mandi Omer that says that 1, not only 2. Right? So clearly our Gemara is going according to the opinion of 1, because the suffix is in what? In 1 woman. You don't have 2 women in front of you, right? It's 1 woman. So our whole Gemara is going to that opinion of a Sefer Krisis that an Hashem Taloi can be even in 1 chaticha, in 1 piece, when the suffix is in 1 piece. Okay. Says the Mishnah, new Mishnah. This is your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz. So Ruvain says to Leah, listen, you're divorced on the condition that you give me 200 zuz. Harizumi Gureshes, she's divorced, V'titain, and she gives the 200 zuz. The Gemara, guys, is saying a huge chiddush. Kol she'omer almenas, ke'omer me'achshav dami. Anyone says, I'm giving you this get on the condition, almenas, on the condition that you give me $200, is if you say you're divorced now and then give me $200. In other words, there's two distinct things. It's not that the get is contingent upon a tanai. The get is a get, and there's a tanai. The get is a get, and then there's a tanai. Good? So that's what we're saying right now. It's a get, v'titain. This is the shita of Rav Huna in the Gemara. There's another shita of licha sheyitain. When you give the $200, then you're divorced. But the divorce, and that's the opinion that when you call oimer almanas is lav ka'oimer me'achshav. So therefore, harizeh gitech almanas shetitlim b'tayim zuz, harizumu guresha, she's divorced, because kol shoimer almanas hilu omawat me'achshav from now, v'titain, and you give the money. How about this one? Almanas shetitnu li mikan vat shloshim yoim. This is your get on the condition that you give from now until 30 days. Okay. If she gives it within 30 days, megureshes. The imlav, and if she doesn't, then ain't a megureshes. The Gemara is going to ask the Chayb Shita. Amrav Shum Megamliel, Maisa b'Tzaydon, be'echad shamal ishtoi, harzakitech almanas shetilli it's talisi. This is your get almanas that you give me my coat. But of this talisay, and he lost his coat. She lost his coat. You give what the worth. The Gemara is going to have a problem. What exactly is he going on? Right? When usually you bring a Maisa, it has to do with the previous statement. This has nothing to do with the previous statement. So the Gemara is going to go ahead and say the Mishnah is missing words and put in that previous statement. Okay, the first statement, guys. This is your get on the condition that you give me 200. My vatiteng, when the Mishnah says, and she gives the money, Rav Huna Amar v'hi titeng, she gives the money. In other words, you're divorced from now, and then you give the money. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, no. Only the cheshetiteng, only when you give the money are you divorced. My binayu, what's the difference? Now, clearly, fellas, she's not able to get married. Don't think for a second, even according to Rabbi Huna, you're divorced, and then you keep the tanai. She can't get married, but the divorce is chal right then and there. You guys can hear it? You guys are here. In other words, it's not the tanai that makes the get. There's the get, and there's an extraneous tanai. Until the tanai is fulfilled, you can't get married, but the get is chal September 1st. And you give the money, whenever you give the money, the get is going to be September 1st. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the get is chal you give the money. It's not chal on September 1st. It would be chal in our scenario on January 1st. That's the difference between the two. So the Gemara wants to know, besides her inability to get married, is there any other nafkamina? Right? Because they both agree you can't get married. They both agree you can't get married. So now, my binayu, it could be nayu, sheniskra get, that the get what gets ripped up, right? That the get what gets ripped up. Guys, outside. According to Rav Huna, that the get was on September 1st. She gave the money in January. When is she divorced from? September 1st. Let's say by January, there's no get anymore. It was lost. It's gone. She's still divorced. Like Rabbi Yehuda, that the divorce is chal in January. If you lose the get, she's not divorced. There's rate over here. If you find the get, let's say the get is not in her possession. Let's say the get is in the street or something. In other words, it's not, when it says of the mean it's not in the world, or it can be in the world and not in possession also would be a problem, right? There's discussion that. Yes, Harold.
Let's say she prepaid the get. Let's say she knew it's coming down a pipe, ready to be delivered, and she gave $200 before the get was delivered. Would that be considered the get, according to this machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda? I don't
understand your question. What's the machlokes? You fulfilled the.
She fulfilled the $200 before the get was given.
So let me ask you a question. Then you just gave the guy a present.
Okay, so that's the answer.
I mean, if the night wasn't made yet, if you prepay, when you prepay, there's a chiyuv ready to pay. You're prepaying a mortgage. There's a mortgage, there's a chiyuv. If he didn't go ahead and offer this as a, you just no,
I hear.
Away.
No, that's the answer. I hear.
Okay. Anyway, says the Gemara. So that would be the difference. If you lose the get or the get, you wouldn't need a second get. He says you would need a second get. Okay. Somebody was guilty. But Tanan Nabi Gami Kedushin, Ki Haigavna, the exact same case by Kedushin. What's the case? Detnan, Isha, Hariat Mikudeshes Li, you are Mikudeshes to me. And guys, here's the key. And he gives a pruta, he gives a kesef Kedushin. You hear? In other words, he was Mikadesha with kesef Kedushin. Al Menash Etin Lecham Zuz, on the condition that I will give to you 200 zuz. So in this case, it's him giving over the money. In the case of get, she's giving the money. In this case, he's giving the money. So this is your kesef kedushin on the condition I'll give you 200 zuz in the future. Harihi mikudeshes, she is mikudeshes, the yitain, and he'll give her the money. Now, my vayitain, Rav Huna Amar v'hu yitain, Rav Yehuda Amar l'chashi yitain. My binayu, it could be nayu, sheposh the yada v'kibla kedushin me'acher. Okay, guys, what's our scenario outside? September 1st, a guy goes over to a woman, gives her a pruta, which it was enough kesef for kedushin, and says, and here I'm being mekadosh now in September, and on the condition, almanas that I give you 200. Says Rav Huna, she is married in September. Says Rav Huna, she's married in September. Says Rav Yehuda, she's married in January. If she would accept kedushin in November, like Rav Huna, it's nothing because she's already mikudeshes from September. Like Rav Yehuda, that when he gives the 200, then and only then is she married. She would not be married to the second guy because she accepted the kedushin mat in. Okay, so now says the Gemara. Rav Yehuda Amalek Shite, my binayu binayu sheposh the yad v'kibel kedushin miyacher. Rav Huna Amar v'hu yitain tanah ba'almahu mekayim tanai v'azol. Keep the kanai and get on with your life. You're mikudeshes in September. You're married to the first guy. Rabbi Yehuda Amalek Shayitain l'chiyavla who havi kedushin hashta lo yavi kedushin. Now what? It's not kedushin. So therefore, what it's not kedushin now because she's mikudeshes to the second guy. Vitzricha. The ashmein on gabi kedushin. Guys, we're going to make it tzricha so by both. We're going to go Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. So outside, let's make sure. Rav Yehuda is the one who says September 1st, right now, side by get, side by kedushin. Rav Yehuda is January, side by get, side by kedushin. Now, why did you have to tell me the machloikis in two venues? I could assume if they say it in one, they could say it in the other. Now the Gemara is going to make the tzricha between the two. It's going to explain the necessity between the two. Says the Gemara the following: Diashmina gabi kedushin. If you tell me by kedushin, behaka amar Rav Huna. There Rav Huna says that she's married to the first guy. For who yitem mishum de l'krayva kasi. Listen, he wants to marry her. He's making a condition to give her money, but he wants to marry her. Avagabi gerishin de l'chayka kasi. But regarding gerishin, he's not bringing her close. He's distancing her. Ema moidele Rav Yehuda. Listen, I'm giving you the get now in September, but maybe, you know what, we obviously have conflict between us. Maybe I'll buy us a little time to go ahead and make shalom bias. So maybe by kedushin, where the guy clearly wants to marry her, so at Rav Huna, the kedushin would be chal in September 1st. By get, where it's an act of distancing, I'd say perhaps what? It's not a get, because maybe he wants to fire her. Kemash malon, even by get, Rav Huna says it. V'yashmin gabi gerishin v'haka amar Rav Huna v'hiyitain mishum like a kasev l'mitva. By what was the case by get? This is your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz. Is this guy going to be embarrassed to claim the money from her? Of course not. He's not going to be embarrassed. Obviously, he wants to divorce his wife and he wants money. He's not going to shame zich. He's not going to be embarrassed to go ask her for the money. So therefore, it's a good get in September. You didn't get the money yet? Don't worry. He's going to go ahead and collect the money. Avogabi kedushin. Now, who's giving the money by kedushin, guys? He is. He gives her the money in September. He's Makadashar. It says on the condition that what? There's 200 zuz coming. Now, it's October, November, December. He hasn't given the money yet. Is this woman going to go ahead and ask him for the money? She's embarrassed to ask him for the money. So perhaps there, right? That it's only what when you give the money, right? It's only when you give the money in January because she's going to be embarrassed. Kamash Malon, not. Did I skip? No, I didn't skip. By Kedushin, there Rabbi Yehuda says you have to wait. Because again, she's embarrassed to ask him. By Gerishin, guys, why should there be a holdup, fellas? He gives her a get in September on the condition that she gives him money. He's not going to be embarrassed. He's getting rid of her. He's not embarrassed to go get the money. So maybe Rav Yehuda, who says January, will be moved to Rav Yehuda, who agrees. Rav Huna, who says September. Kamash will not. V'yashmin gabi gerishin b'hakama Rav Yehuda. Over there, Rav Yehuda says the chashititain mishum d'lechayka kasa, because since he wants to distance her, it goes the same svara, but the opposite way. Maybe there he's buying time for make shalom bias. Avagabi kedushin d'lekarva kasi and Rav Yehuda said tzricha. You have to tell me most. So we have machloikis between Rav Huna and Rav Huna in two venues, and we made it tzrichas of both. Right, the Rav Huna side by Gerishin, even though there's a svara to say that what it's rechaika, nonetheless he's going to go ahead and do it. And it's not going to be in. It's still going to be in. According to Rav Yehuda, it's still going to be in January. By kedushin, even though he's being a close, it's still going to be what she's embarrassed. And who did the opposite svara? Just going to be Meisive. We're going to ask on Rav Yehuda again, guys. Shita. Rav Huna says September. It's a good way to remember. Rav Huna says September. Rav Yehuda says January. We're going to ask now on Rav Yehuda. Meisive. This is your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz. Now, what we're saying, kol omer al menas, ki'il omer me'achshav. That's the key, guys. Anyone that says al menas, it's like you said, me'achshav, from September. Afa pishenikra get, even though the get is ripped, I never migareshes. But she can't get married to somebody else. And he dies. Nasna ain't as kukul yavam. If she gave him the money, she's a gerusha. Loy nasna is a kukul yavam. If she didn't give it, then she's an almana. She doesn't have to give it to him. She can give it to what? To his father, his brother, or one of his relatives. I can't wait pligi the Chacham and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel whether she can give it to the relatives. Ela demasava lotli v'loy liyarshi. Right. Tanakama says that if he's dead, it's too late. There's no way she can be mekayim the get to say that she was divorced in September. So it's why? Because he said this is your get on the condition that you give me 200. You didn't give me 200. You didn't give me 200. Says of Shimon Gamliel, you don't have to give it to me, even if you give it to my yarshim. So guys, listen to this. This guy's outside. Listen to this. Even though we hold in get la'achamisa, if the guy is dead and you fulfilled the tanai, then she would have been divorced in September. He dies in November. He dies before the money is given, he's dead. Can you be yotze the tanai to make it retroactively in September a get that even though he's dead, she's a divorcee and doesn't fall to Yibum? Says the Chachamim, no, you can't. Because he says you have to give the money to me, and since he's dead, you can't give him the money. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel, guess what? Li doesn't mean me. Li means even my Yarshim. So even if he's dead, you can give it to the Yarshim. But guys, Sai according to the Chachamim, Sai according to Shimon Gamliel, when's the get from? September. Who's that a raya to? Rav Huna. Who's it a kasha on? Rav Yehuda, who says it's a get in January. Geshmak araya. Says Gemara. So Ad Kan Le Pligi Ella Demasava Leave Loli Yarshi. The Chacham will say that if he's dead, she's an almana because she can't be a divorcee because since she didn't give him the money, the Tanai wasn't fulfilled and she wasn't divorced since September. Umas Savar, who Reb Shimon Gamliel is of the opinion, Li Vafilu Yarshi. You give me the 200 or even my Yarshim. But Kuli Alma, Mia, Tana Have, it's a Tanai, it's a Tanai, and therefore what? You don't she's divorced since September. Tiyuf the Rav Huna. So in both cases, this is Upshlag on Rav Huna, who says it's only a get when you give the money in January. Okay? How does Rav Yehuda the Amoira escape this? He wants to say that this is a Machloikis Rebbe and the Chachamim, and I have a Tana that goes with me. Since I'm supported by a Tana, I'm okay. Amalach Rav Yehuda, who says she's divorced in January, Hamani Rebbe. Who's the Tana of this Brisa that says she's divorced in September? It's Rebbe. The Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Kala Omer Almenas. Anyone who says Almenas, Ka'omer Ma'achshav Dami. He said what? May Achshav from September. Upligi Rabban Allah, and the Chacham disagree. They would say it's not from September, it's January. But another Ami, I Rabbi Yehuda hold like the Rabbanon. Guys, you good? Okay, so let's go ahead and what we saw. You have a Mishnah says anyone who says this is you get Almanas, give me 200. Almanas that you give me 200 zuz, right? According to Rav Huna, it's a get right away, and you give the 200 zuz. And when you give the 200 zuz, it's a get right away. Why? Because Kol Omer Almanas Ka'ilama Akshav Dami. Says Rabbi Yehuda, she's not divorced right away. She's divorced only when you give the money. So the get in our scenario is not in September; it's in January. Rebbe says, you have a brisa that says openly that you're divorced from September. That goes according to Rebbe. I hold it to the Chachamim who disagree, and they say Kol Omanas is lav koine me'achshav. Therefore, if it's not me'achshav September when you gave the get, it's what it's in January. We also had the same achloikas by kedushin, and we made strichas. So right now we're holding. Everyone is on the same page. We're doing geshmak. It's 20 to 11 at night. And we're learning Torah all because of Zoom, which is pretty amazing, right? That's the bottom line. If I would have told you, what are you doing on Motzei Shabbos Nachamu, right? Well, I'm going to a share on Zoom. Heshi would rather be in Woodward playing pool in the Lucky Drip, right? Okay, anyway, I knew Lenny would like that. Mam Reb Zera, says Reb Zera, Ki avinu beBavel, when I was in Bavel, Amin and Ha, Dam Rav Huna, that Rav Huna said, Amar Rebbe, Kol Omer Almanas Kaimim Ma'achshav Dami. Anyone who says Kol Omer like Rebbe is Pligi Rabban Aleha. However, that's what I said in Bavel. Kisaliki. However, when I went out to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechasi l'Ravasi, I found Rabbi Asi, the Yosef Kamar, and he was sitting and he said, Mishmeid Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol Moedim Ba'omer Almanas Kaimim Ma'achshav Dami. Even the Chachamim would be Moeda. Even the Chachamim would be Moeda. Now we got a problem, guys, right? So how does Rabbi Yehuda? Then we have a question. So why, if everyone says Kol Omer Almanas Kaimim Ma'achshav Dami, why then does Rabbi Yehuda hold in January? It should be September. You know what it's speaking? Where he said, this is you get from today Lachamisa. Now, guys, today Lachamisa is a suffix, right? Do you mean it's a get now and after I die? Or do you mean I said it's a get now, but I'm having charata and I'm saying no, it's only after I die. Right, I'm a base. But Tanya, and here's Tanya, guys, is a proof, a riot Rabbi Yochanan that the Machloikas thing Rebbe Nichachomim is not by Almanas. The Machloikas is by Veha Hayoim Ulachamisa. Hayom Ulachamisa get veina get the Rechachomim. Guys, what's the suffix? The suffix is that he changed his mind when he said Me'ayom doesn't mean from September. And Lachamisa says, no, it means in January. Rebbe Yomer, Kizeh get, no, he means what? Mehayom, it's you get from now, and Lachamisa, now. Ula Rebbe Yehuda, the Amar Ba'almanas Pligi. So Rebbe Yehuda, he said the Machlokes Almanas. Ademifligi Mehayom Lachamisa, Lifli Ba'almanas. Why did they argue by what? By Hayom Lachamisa, let him open by Almanas, right? It's a bigger Chiddush, guys. It's a bigger Chiddush. Almanas is a suffix, right? It's a big chiddush. let him argue by Almanas and Kol Shekin over here. Almanas is less of a suffix. Mayom Lachamis is more of a suffix. So if you hold Almanas would be January, certainly you're going to hold Mayom Lachamis will be January. So why did Rabbi Yehuda learn, right? Why did Rabbi Yehuda, according to the second shot, why didn't they argue by Almanas? And says, well, Almanas l'diach koich the Rebbe. Almanas is to tell us the koich of Rebbe, that Rebbe holds that it's me'achshav dami, which is a big heter. Let's learn Almanas to learn the koich of the Rabbanon, that it's aser. Says, guys, it's always easier to say it's aser. It's a much bigger chiddush to say it's mutter. There's a Rashi in the beginning of Beitza, Daf Beis on Beis. Guys, it's always a koich the hetera adif. If you ask a paisik for a psak to say asa, you don't have to ask him, right? Anyone could say asa. You don't need a paisik for that. You need a paisik to say it's mutter. So if you're telling me that she's married in January or September, it's a much bigger chiddush to say she's married in September. And therefore what? We learned it by Machlekes by Almanas. Okay. Says the Rabbi. Almanas shetidli mikan v'shleishim yoyim. We said if you give it within shleishim yoyim, you're divorced. If you don't give it within shleishim yoyim, you're not divorced. Pshita, you didn't fulfill the condition. So ma'ad tema kepeda, lav kepeda, ulizar zikosim. And he said 30 days. You know what he wanted to do? Really, he wasn't makbid. He just wanted to go light a fire under her. That she'd come up with the money right away. Give me the money before 30 days passes, you know? And really is not makbid. So I would say even after 30 days, it would be a good get. Kamash Malon, that when he said 30 days, there's a akpada for 30 days. Amr Shum Gamliel, Maisa bit Sidon. Shimon said there was a Maisa in Sidon, where a guy said, this is your get on the condition that you bring me my coat. And then the coat got lost. And if Shimon ben Gamliel said, you know what? Go ahead and give the value of the coat. That's what he said. Give the value of the coat. Now, what was he going on, guys? Usually, we're missing. In other words, you said you're speaking about Almanas, you're speaking about Shleishim Yoim, and then he says there's a Maisa with a coat. Well, what's he going on? He says, going, my Tana, who's the Tana? The Tani Maisa. In other words, you use Maisa, usually the Maisa is to support what was just said. Guys, if the Maisa is not to support, what do we say? Maisa listar, you're bringing a Maisa to contradict. Here, you're bringing a Maisa, but it's not supporting anybody because no one was discussing a coat. No one was discussing this, that you had to bring in a Maisa to support it. So the Gemara wonders right away. My Tana diktani Maisa. Says, it's missing words. Im Amala Almenashe Titnili, it's Talisi. This is your get on condition that you give me my coat. Vi of the it's Talisoi, right? It's Talisi Dafka Kamala, right? He meant Dafka is it's Talis, and it's not a good get. In other words, you can't fulfill the condition. I want my Tommy Hilfiger coat. I don't want its value. And if you don't give it to me, you're not divorced. No. So those are the words that we're missing, guys. We're missing those words. And Shimon says, no, Titan le'esnemel, give the. So now, what was the missing words? If you a guy says this is you get on condition that you give me my coat, you better give his coat. Not says a Gamliel, Shimon Gamliel, no, you can give the value. And now the Maisa is to buttress the sheet of Shimon Gamliel. Shimon Gamliel, Maisa nami b'tzaydin be'echad sh'amal le'ishtoi harzakitech almenashe titin it's talisi. Of the Talisa, he lost his particular coat. Give its worth. Good. This is your get on the condition you give me 200 zuz. Okay, great. And he says, is that considered a fulfillment of the condition or not? I want you to give me 200. I'm Michael. Is that considered fulfillment or not? Tiboy Rabbanon, who says that you have to give the coat. Tiboy Shum Gamliel says you can give the value. Right? Again, we're going back to the case. Tiboy Rabbanon, Ad kan loikam Rabbanon Chasam, that you have to give that coat. Elad loy ochla gaba. He was never Michael the coat. Aval hacha kamalei mechul l'cha. Over here he's Michael the Tanai. So therefore you'd be divorced. In other words, guys, if he said, bring me that coat, and you lose it, and you give the value of the coat, he never said he's Michael the coat. Mashenkin over here, he's verbalizing Amaychel. So even the Chachamim who say by the coat it wouldn't be a good get because the condition wasn't fulfilled. Over here, we use Meichel it, perhaps the condition is fulfilled. So therefore, it's a shaila according to the Chachamim. Dilma, Afil Rav Shimon Gamliel, who says that you can give the value of the coat like Amar Ella the Kamafaisale b'demei, because she's appeasing him with value. In other words, Rav Shimon says, good, you're not getting the coat, but you're getting the value of the coat. But over here by Mechila, you're getting nothing. So maybe Rav Shimon will hold over here that it's not a fulfillment of Tanai. So it's a question like the Chachamim, and it's a question like Rav Shimon Gamliel. So Amalei, so he said to him, who said to who? Amalei. So he said to him, I'm saying who said to who? Okay. So Rabbi Yochanan said to Ravasi, Eina Megureshes. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan said to Ravashi, Eina Megureshes. She's not divorced. Okay, good. So Rabbi Yochanan is paskening Eina Megureshes. It's important. The name's important because we're asking Rabbi Yochanan now. Okay, guys. So what does Eina Megureshes mean? That Tanai wasn't fulfilled. That Mechila, fellas, that Mechila is not considered a fulfillment of Tanai. That's the only Nakuda you have to know over here. If she would be divorced, then obviously Mechila is you fulfill the 200. If you're not divorced, then Mechila is not a fulfillment of the Tanai because you're not divorced. Rabbi Yochanan says you're not divorced. Clearly, Mechila is not a fulfillment of the Tanai. Fred the Gemara Kasha. Esive. Now, we know in the Parshas of Nedarim, remember from Nedarim days, that you can make something also like a carbon. A carbon's also ba'ana. So, Kainim sha'atanenesli, you can't have enough from me. Everything that I own is a carbon to you. Unless you give my son a kur of wheat, or 2 barrels of wine. So in other words, there's a condition. You can't have enough from me unless you fulfill the condition of giving my son some produce or some wine. The so Reb Meir says what? Says Reb Meir, you got to fill the condition. Says the Chachamim, if you are Moichel, since you take off the neder, you take off, therefore what? You can be Moichel, and therefore you can have Anah. So what do you see? That Kol Oimis Kabalti, it's like I received the Chitim, I received the wine, it's a Moichel the Tanai, and the neder is off, and you could have Anah. So this is a brisa. So how can you, Rabbi Yochanan, say that if you're Moichel the Tanai, it's not Mechila? We have a brisa. The words of Tanoim, the Chachamim will say it is a Mechila. Kashan Rabbi Yochanan. Kashan Rabbi Yochanan. Again, one more time. Says Rabbi Yochanan, if you go ahead and say this is your get on the condition, you give me 200 zuz, and then your Moichel, says Rabbi Yochanan, that if Mechila is not takes off the Tanai, you didn't fulfill the Tanai, it's not a good get. Yeah, we see by Neder the opposite. It's a good neder. The neder is taken off when you say, I'm Moichel the Kilis Kabalti. It's if I was Moichel. Saying is, I received the produce, the chitim and the wine, it's like a Moichel. And we see the neder is off. So why by get? So Kash and you, why by get is not a get? And this is a Tana speaking, and you Rabbi Yochanan and Amira. So Mahachi Hashta. It's not a good sushta, not a kasha. Hassam, guys, when he's divorcing his wife, why did he make a contingent upon getting the coat? He wanted to bust the chops. He wanted to make it fair enough. Guess what? You're divorced, but guess what? You got to give me my Tommy Hilfiger coat. You wanted to bust the chops, right? And therefore, and therefore, it wasn't. Therefore, if she doesn't fulfill it, there was no tsar. Memela, it's not a good get. Over here, the whole reason he wanted the neder to be a neder was that his son should make money. By going and said he doesn't need the money, There's a difference why the mechila is not a mechila. By get, the whole purpose of saying the coat was the painter. Once you're Michael, there's no pain. Therefore, it's not a good get. But the kavana by the son was to give the son a few bucks. You can be Michael the bucks. So therefore, it's not a kashan Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, now we were going to bring a case, and we want to say this case is the machloikus between the Chachamim and Reb Shimon Gamliel. Who gathered was this individual? The Amalei Larise, he's told this sharecropper. Kuli alma doli tlas dilvasa. This is ve'achli riva. Usually, here was the contract. 3 times a year, irrigate the field, take care of it. You'll get a quarter of the produce. However, listen to this. I got a deal for you. At Doli Arba, you go ahead and irrigate an extra time. For Achel Tilsa, instead of a quarter, you're going to get a third. So he's giving him an extra, an extra incentive, but he has to work harder. Good. So now he went ahead, he irrigated the field 3 times, and he was about to irrigate it the 4th time. L'soif Ais Asamitra came along the rain, and it was unnecessary to go ahead and do the 4th irrigation. Question: does he get the 3rd or does he get a quarter? Does he get the 3rd or the quarter? Because it's unnecessary the 4th irrigation. Rav Yosef, he doesn't get the quarter because he didn't fulfill the condition. Rabbi Amar, it's not necessary, and therefore he would get the 3rd. Lamer Rabbi Yosef, who says he gets the quarter, who had, let's say Rabbi Yosef, who says he gets the quarter, just like in a Mishnah, you have to give the coat, guys. In our Mishnah, you have to give the coat, right? Here you have to irrigate the field. So you didn't do it. So let's say Rabbi Yosef, who says you didn't do it, holds like the Tana of the Mishnah, the Chachamim, you didn't give the coat. Again, we have machlokes in our Mishnah between the Chachamim and Shum Gamliel. Loit the Chachamim, right? She's not divorced. Why? You didn't fulfill the condition. You can't give value. You have to give the coat, and you didn't give the coat. You conditionally said you're going to get a 3rd if you irrigate the field the 4th time. You didn't irrigate the field the 4th time. And the Rabbi, what did Rabbi say? Says Rabbi, no. Says Rabbi, you don't have to go ahead and fulfill the coat. You can give the value. So therefore, over here also, you don't have to go ahead and fulfill the irrigation because you don't have to, because it was not unnecessary. For Rabbi, so let's say the machlokes to Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi in this shaila that came in front of them regarding a sharecropper is in fact the machlokes Tanoim. For Tizbara, we got a problem, guys. So now, who do we have? We have Rabbi holding like a Shimon Gamliel, correct? We have Rabbi holding like Shimon Gamliel. For Kaimelon the Rabbi, machlokes Rabbi, Rabbi Yosef, the Allah is like Rabbi. For her, ain't Allah like Shimon Gamliel. As we're going to see tomorrow's daf, the Allah is like Shimon Gamliel all the time except 3 places. And this is the case at Sidon. So how could you zesign Rabbah saying he doesn't have to irrigate like a Shimon Gamliel, that you don't have to give the coat? The halacha is not like a Shimon Gamliel, but the halacha is like Rabbah. So what do you have to say, guys? That the Chachamim who argue on Reb Shimon Gamliel by coat would agree by irrigation that you don't have to do it. And therefore Rabbah could come out like the Rabbanon. Again, guys, look at me outside. Here's our problem. We're paralleling Rabbah to Reb Shimon Gamliel, who says you don't have to give the coat, to Rabbah, who says you don't have to irrigate the field. Here's the problem. The halacha is not like him, and the halacha is like him. So what are we going to do over here? We're going to do the following. Rabbah would say like the Chachamim, who even though they argue by coat, they would disagree by field. They would agree by a field that you don't have to irrigate the field. And then Rabbah can come out like the Rabbanon and not like Shimon Gamliel, and everything would be great. Let's just see how it works out. You got the mechanics. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. I'll tell you, Kirabanan. Loilam, Reb Shimon, the Rabbah holds like the Rabbanon. Reb Yosef, Kirabanan, Loilam, Kirabanan, Reb Yosef, Kirabanan, Rabba Amalach. Another Amiyafil the Rabbanan. I can even hold like the Rabbanan who hold by coat, you have to give the coat. I'd kind of like a Rabbanan Haslam that you have to give the coat. As we said, he wants to pain her, he wants to bust the chops, and therefore they're makbid on that coat. Because if you give the value, then what? You're not being mitzarha. Over here, what was the purpose of irrigating the field the 4th time? To go ahead and make a few extra bucks. It's the rich. And now you don't have it. The Chacham would agree over here. Why do you have to go ahead? I didn't irrigate the field. I don't have to irrigate the field. The purpose of irrigating the field was to make it a richer crop this year, because you're adding an extra irrigation. That extra irrigation is over there already. The Chacham would be moida that you don't have to. Therefore, the Rabbah holds like Roshim Gamliel. Okay, thank you everyone for listening. A good Davach. Tomorrow morning, Be'ez Hashem will be share. We'll send out the time in the morning.